Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Doug.
So, I hope you're ready for this. Since we sent out the social media ask for people to send in questions, you are clearly a popular man. So, are you ready?
I'm ready, yep.
Fantastic. So, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, Paul Faulkner, I'm Chief Exec at the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce. Been in role there now for nearly 5 years, which has absolutely flown by. And prior to that, I had a short spell as Chief Exec at Nottingham Forest. And previous to that, had a longer spell involved with Aston Villa, including as Chief Exec there. So sort of a nice shift from football into the world of commerce after I finished at Forest. But been very fortunate in my career. Had some fantastic roles, some great experiences, and love what I do now, working with some brilliant people.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to start a little bit earlier in your career. And one of the very first questions that came in, what did you actually want to do when you left school? And there's a couple of people have asked this question, so I don't know if I've missed something in the past in speaking to you, but people want to know what you actually wanted to do.
I mean, as a kid, I wanted to be a pilot to start with. I spent a lot of time on aeroplanes, but as I got a bit older, I realised that I didn't enjoy flying that much, which was a bit of a rate limiting step for a wannabe pilot. So my next sort of idea, I guess, was to be a sports journalist. Always loved writing and reading, and I loved sport from a young age, and sort of pretty much every sport. And I did some work experience at a local paper when I was 16, a couple of weeks work experience, and I think it slightly shattered any illusions of grandeur I had about the industry. Recognised how difficult it was, and probably put me off. So when I left school, I went and did a history degree, which I guess I had lots of reading and writing in that, and just learning. But I'd say that by the time I was 18, I wasn't really too sure what I wanted to do. And I've had quite an eclectic career since, but certainly moved on from the pilot days.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that someone had told me was you were actually, when you were a young boy, you were actually really obsessed with watching. You weren't a train spotter, but you were a plane spotter. Is that true?
My grandparents, it is true. Yeah, my grandparents live near Heathrow Airport. Both sets of grandparents, and in the summer holidays, we'd get the bus over to the airport, and it used to be called the Queen's Building, and I think Terminal 2 at Heathrow, and go up there and look at the aeroplanes. And one of the real highlights was getting to see Concorde. As a kid, I just loved Concorde, and occasionally, you used to be able to know what time it was landing, and that plane is so iconic, and remember to this day getting a buzz seeing it land or take off. Something very, very special about it. So yeah, guilty as charged there, Doug.
Yeah, I won't ask to see the log, which I can see behind you on the second from left top shelf. We'll leave it there. The next question that came in, and you just touched on it briefly, did you ever have ambitions to follow in your father's footsteps? You said you did a bit of work experience, but for those who don't know, your dad was a pretty spot-on journalist, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, he'd spent his career working in the regional newspaper industry, and certainly on the sort of the business side of it. And so I grew up around newspapers. Every night I remember he'd come home and he'd bring back every single paper, all of the daily papers, and the local papers, or wherever we were living. And so that was like a routine almost, that get in about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'd sit and read them all. And I guess mainly it was the sport that I was reading at that stage, but you just read different match reports and the different styles, be it the tabloids or the broadsheets or the like. So that was really that love for I guess journalism, and as I say, in particular sport journalism, came from that. And I suppose in my career, I've always had done a lot of work with journalists, certainly at the football club and at the chamber as well. And in my mind, it gives me a sense of understanding where they're coming from. And so I've always, personally, I've felt I've got on well with the media rather than seeing them as there to catch you out or to get you. They've got a job to do. And, if you work with them, then you can build up a really good relationship, which I think is important for everyone. And certainly, good journalism is absolutely vital in our society. I really believe that, for making sure that it keeps those in positions of power or authority sort of to account. There's a balance to be had, because bad journalism can be very dangerous and damaging. But the freedom of the press is something I've always believed in, and I guess that comes from that background, and certainly my dad's sort of work in the paper industry.
Good. Well, talking about holding you to account, let's move on to, and there's been a lot of questions which I've had to sort of shrink down, your time at Aston Villa. So your time at Aston Villa, what was it like running a football club at such a young age? I won't divulge how old you were, but you're going to tell us how old you were.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I was involved at the takeover of the club by the Lerner family back in summer 2006, when I'd have been 27. And then it was a couple of years later when I sort of really moved to Birmingham and worked full-time at the club. But for the first couple of years or so, I had a role where I was working with Randy Lerner, and sort of I was still based in the States. We spent a lot of time traveling, and I suppose just had a really good introduction to the club, to the staff behind the scenes, to football in the Premier League. I mean, Martin O'Neill was brilliant with me, and really sort of took me under his wing. And certainly some of the early stages when we were doing deals with agents and bringing players in and the like, Martin was a real mentor. He was fantastic, and very, very sort of generous with his time and with his support. So I guess at the time, Doug, it felt like I had a really good almost apprenticeship, and that was before there was not necessarily a formal role and the pressure that comes with that. But what I was having was a couple of years, I guess, to learn the ropes and to see the inner workings of the club and of the industry, and then you learn sort of through that. So it felt very, very natural rather than being sort of dropped in at the deep end. And I think I give, say, an awful lot of credit to those people around me who I was working with.
Okay, that's a great answer. The next question is an interesting one. What was it like working for a rich, demanding American man? Tell us a little bit about, Mr. Lerner, how it was. I bet it was a great relationship when all the results and everything was beautiful on the field.
Yeah, I found it really easy. I suppose I started my career working at MB&A, the credit card company. I'm sure most people have got an MB&A card in their wallet. And so, that was, I was based in the UK for the majority of my time with them. Did spend some time in the States, but it was an American company with a really strong culture and ethos, and sort of a work ethic, I guess, ran through the bank. And it chimed with me. It just sort of fitted with my attitude and I guess my upbringing, and, the sort of the real strong work ethic. And so I suppose I was just used to it. And working in that style work was no different, really, working with Randy and the family than it had been in MB&A. So I was used to it. So it never felt demanding in any which way. It was just what I did, what we did, how we operated. And so that side, it was straightforward. And you'll know, working obviously, as part of the McDonald's family as well, about that culture. And once you get into the rhythm of it, I think it just becomes second nature, doesn't it?
Okay, I think you've answered two questions there, because then one of the other questions we had about it was, where'd you get all your energy from? But you've clearly always had it, and you're known for working tirelessly. So staying with the football thing.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's, again, I feel really fortunate. I always do. And without sounding too corny, you try to make the most out of every single day. And I mean, trust me, like most people, a cup of coffee to get the engine running in the morning certainly sort of helps. But, I think, we're fortunate to be alive. So try to make the most of every single day.
Right. We're still at Villa Park. Some really interesting ones. Who was the most famous person you ever hosted at Villa Park? And the other part was, were you genuinely excited by it?
That's a good question. I'm going to cheat a bit here. And I mean, there were probably two people really stood out in my mind. One was Prince William, who came along to a game, I think it would be about 2013, and we got the sort of message came through, and it was that he wanted to come. It wasn't an official trip. He was coming with a couple of friends and their little boy. It was just after Prince George had been born, and so we sorted out a space, and there's sort of security, even on a day off for the royal family. There's an awful lot of security and protocol, but we found an area, a private area for him, and he came along, and that was exciting without a doubt. And went in and spoke with him at half time, and he was great. We were just chatting about the game, and he was he's a proper Villa fan. I remember going and meeting him with Stilian Petrov, who'd just been recovering from leukemia, and we just spoke for 15 minutes. He wanted to know what was going on with the team, what's happening with the players, and he sent me a lovely note afterwards. The game itself was a 0-0 draw. I think we played Sunderland. It wasn't one. It was put like this. It was probably last on match of the day, but he sent a lovely note saying the result was solid, and you can never have enough claret and blue blood in your veins. And so I thought that was a lovely message. So Prince William definitely. The other one which sticks out was Robert Plant, and obviously Robert Plant. He's a massive Wolves fan. He's been involved on the board there, and this was probably 2006, 2007, and we had a message that one of his best friends was a lifelong Villa fan and sadly had terminal cancer, and Robert bought a box for a game. It was an evening game against Chelsea, and he just had 10 mates, and they were treating their friend to a night out and a bit of fun, and it was all done very low key. And then we got a message that he'd like to see Randy and sort of say thank you, and we went up to the box, and I remember he was, we spoke to his friend, and they were just a group of guys having a great time. It was so genuine, and he came up and he actually presented Randy with a copy of his latest CD, and he had it in a Wolves bag, which he found hilarious. And he was just a cool guy, and loved Led Zeppelin, and standing there, I must admit, I did sort of think, wow, this is Robert Plant. This is the Robert Plant. How cool is that? So, yeah, Prince William and Robert Plant I'm going to take.
Okay. And in terms of, I guess Prince William sent you a note or something afterwards. Where have you put that cherished note?
Got it framed, and we
framed.
Of course, hung it in the downstairs loo.
Beautiful. We've still got football questions pouring in, so we'll have to use this time wisely. One that's come through is it true you almost signed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, obviously the Manchester United manager, as the Villa manager? Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. No, we had conversations with Ole about joining Villa. I suppose you end up meeting lots of different people, and when managers change and when you're out recruiting, there's an awful lot of conversation, some over the phone, some done in person, and you're exploring. So it's both sides are exploring if it might be something which is going to work. You try to do these things privately, of course. I remember that one because people used to track Randy's jet. You can track it by the tail number, and we'd sent the plane had gone to Norway to pick up Ole, and so by the time he landed at Birmingham Airport, there was photographers there, and they got pictures of him getting out of the plane. So the privacy piece was rather blown.
Yeah, I suppose
he's a lovely guy, I must say. He's a lovely guy, very, very genuine. And obviously, got one of the biggest jobs in world football now at Old Trafford. And, will be, personally, certainly wish him all the best.
Great. Now, listen, there are many more football questions, but I think it would be really remiss of us not to move on to what's currently happening, in terms of the coronavirus, because, you are well positioned in the Chamber of Commerce. How many members have you got, Paul?
We're just shy of 3,500 members, Doug. So, businesses all shapes and sizes, all sectors. But we've got a really strong chamber here in Greater Birmingham, and great team of people working in the chamber who are very passionate about helping and supporting them.
So to contextualise, 3,500 sounds huge. Just contextualise that within the UK. How big is our chamber?
So we're one of the largest chambers in the country. There's 53 chambers in total, and they've all got slightly different geographies, and I think the biggest is actually in East Midlands, which is a combination of Derbyshire, Leicestershire and Nottingham, and so I guess that's come together over different times. But it's a brilliant movement, which is rooted in being that independent voice for the business community, standing up for the interests of the business community, and it's about collaboration and togetherness. And I think that the longer I've been involved with the chamber, the more you sort of buy into it. And it can sound a bit corny, but you see it time after time. Those businesses and those individuals who give the most, who are generous with their time, generous with their sort of sharing, they always get the most back. And those who engage with the chamber really use it, and it helps to facilitate so much good. I mean, our chamber's been around since 1813, so 207 years, and there is something special, something very powerful when you have issues like now, like the coronavirus, or we've had challenges like Brexit in the past sort of couple of years, and you used to take a moment and look at the board that we have at Chamber House, which lists out all of the presidents since 1813, and you sort of realise that this institution has been through an awful lot, world wars and depressions and all kinds, and it gives you that sense of permanence, that while lots will change, that need for that independent voice, that need for an organisation which can bring people together and support business, support commerce, is sort of pretty eternal, really. And and we're passing through, those of us who are sort of custodians at this period, and the aim for me and the team is to make sure that we kind of keep strengthening the chamber, stay true to the history and the core values. I think make sure that we're also forward thinking and dynamic, so that you can flex and evolve and make sure that you're relevant for the here and now, and make sure that we leave it in good stead for those who will follow in the years and the decades and hopefully the centuries to come.
Yeah, you've said that very succinctly there. In terms of, we've had lots of people say, make sure you thank him for all his great work with HS2, but I'm not going to. I'm going to swiftly move on.
Thank you.
And these are the questions that people really, people have wrote in saying, put him on the spot, ask him his view. So let's get on with it. How long do you think before the country will come out of this awful pandemic? So when would you expect to see some of your businesses back open and starting to get to some degree of normality? So, you're the chief executive of our Greater Chamber of Commerce. They're all saying, how long do you think before we come out of this? Your personal view.
It's a really good question, isn't it? And I think, increasingly now, we need to understand the exit strategy. We need to understand what the sort of the pathway looks like. I think that people recognise it's not going to be a simple, straightforward here's the day where everything's back to normal. That's clearly not going to be the case. There's going to need to be social distancing measures in place for quite some period. That will impact just life in general, and certainly businesses in different ways. And it may be that certain sort of sectors, certain parts of the economy get sort of ramped up to speed more quickly. Sat here today, and today we're recording this on the 23rd of April. We've clearly got another few weeks under the current conditions that's been set out by the government. We've got the early May bank holiday on Friday the 8th. That would seem to be a point in time where maybe the following week, I'm hopeful that there will be conversations and a plan set out where certain things might ease by then, but it's clearly going to run into the summer and into the autumn to some degree. So I think this is one of the challenges for business right now, is trying to plan and prepare when there is no clarity or certainty. We understand why, but I think it's increasingly important that the government work with the business community, work with your citizens. I think the British public are pretty smart, and we want to know what the reality is, what we've got to do, and how can we start to emerge from lockdown while, of course, remaining safe and ensuring that we don't trigger a second wave or anything that's going to put more lives at risk or put undue strain on the health service.
Okay, you've answered quite a few of our good questions there. Somebody sent in, somebody quite new to Chamber. What would your top tip for members who are worried about surviving this and getting through the other side and reopening, albeit not exactly the same format? But what would one of your top tips be? From a man who's been around in the region for an awfully long time.
You've got to know your business inside out. You've got to know all the component parts and your people and what it's all about, truly what your business is about. I think you then got to make sure that you are up to speed and on top of absolutely everything, all of the support measures that are out there, how you access and what you're entitled to. That's a role that we're trying to play at the Chamber, is to make sure that we're bringing information to people, making sure it's easy to access, making sure that they are maxing out on all of the support that is there. If they're falling through gaps, then that's a big focus for us as well, to try to lobby for people where they maybe are stuck, maybe they haven't been picked up by the packages of support that are out there, and we're trying to sort of help with that. And that's where I'd urge businesses to make sure they're engaging. Don't sit there doing nothing. Talk to people like the Chamber, and let's see what we can do collectively. And then I think with the planning, you've got to be nimble and you've got to be flexible, in your mindset and your thinking. And this is it's an unprecedented situation. There's going to be an awful lot of challenges that come with this, and sort of staying in the game from a business point of view. And so you've got to be ready to flex and to change with that, and things that you maybe did before that were staples of your business and worked really nicely, they may not work in the period that we're coming into. And so you have to be able to sort of think around that and adapt. And I think those businesses who are nimble and are flexible and are ready to move depending on what happens next and what we're allowed to do and the conditions that are there, will do best. And the other thing, I guess, is just to keep your eyes up and look for all sorts of opportunities to develop your business. A big part of what we do focuses on encouraging businesses to trade internationally. Be that through the Commonwealth Chamber or the Transatlantic Chamber or our DIT work and other international activity that we do. There's some phenomenal opportunities in general about trading overseas, and it's one of the challenges we have is to get businesses to look at those. Now's a good time to be exploring absolutely every avenue for your business and making sure that you're maxing out on the opportunities that are there, because we're going to need that without a doubt to come through this situation. But it's not going to be easy, Doug, and I think that's where collaboration and support and being a part of an organisation and the community such as the Chamber, engaging with that, back to what I said before about, you know, being generous with your time, because you will get an awful lot more back out. These are all sort of elements which will help your business to prosper once again.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also a lot of comments coming in about, to build on the back of that, about all the resources and everything the Chamber have put in place, you know, in terms of all our policies, some marvellous stuff coming out from Henrietta and her team. So clearly members are deriving great value from it, which is very encouraging. But yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty out there in terms of, this builds on to the next question. What lessons, in your view, must we learn from this pandemic?
Oh, I mean, I think the aftermath and the review and the lessons to be learned will be multiple, won't they? If anything, I suppose, you know, looking at a really big picture, it's just how fragile things can be. And, you know, while we like to, just as humans, to think we're in control of so much, it just goes to show how delicate our planet is, you know, and this whole sort of civilization that we've kind of created. And you know, it probably links in and feeds into a lot of the conversations which prior to coronavirus we were seeing more and more around climate change, you know. And there's been no doubt, when you look at the sort of statistics, that the planet's been heating up, and that's been down to the influence that humans have been having on it. And, you know, we've sort of seen that while steps were being made in lots of areas, probably not enough was being done. And I wonder if this will be a shock to the world, and the fact that it's affecting everywhere across the globe, no one is excluded, sort of reminds us that we have to, you know, work more closely as a planet. You know, we can't do this in isolation, because there's things which we don't control and which are bigger than us. I mean, that's a real big picture sort of answer, but it does sort of strike me that if we ignore that when we come through this, then we've really missed the sort of probably an opportunity to sort of reset, you know, how we work as a species here. So I mean, that big side of stuff really does sort of play on my mind, and I'm intrigued to see how we work more closely across countries, and, as I say, across, you know, continents when we get out of this.
Okay, I'm getting a message that I need to wrap this up in a couple of minutes. So what would you like as a real sort of Birmingham champion? What would you like to see Birmingham doing differently afterwards? Would it be manufacturing? What, you know, more manufacturing? Or personally, what do you want to see afterwards?
I mean, you know, I think your point about manufacturing is really well made, you know, and Birmingham was famous, wasn't it, in the Industrial Revolution for being the workshop of the world. And I think if there's one lesson that's very, very stark right now, is that you know, we need to be able to make more here. I mean, we look at the challenges, say, around PPE and trying to import it all over the world, and there's some brilliant businesses who are flexing and adapting and trying to sort of switch their sort of processes of manufacturing to make PPE. But we need to make more here. We need to sort of reshore an awful lot, and I think Birmingham, with our history, our heritage, our attitude, existing businesses that are here, is really well placed to once again, you know, be that workshop of, certainly of the UK, and why not the world, and kind of let's build on the not only the heritage, but build on the brilliant people and businesses that we have in our region, and take a lead there. You know, obviously from the last election, and you touched on HS2, I think it's crucial that we do level up the economy in this country, and you know, that links with calls for greater sort of devolution and powers for the region. We want to be able to sort of steer our path far more than we've been able to right now, and I would hope that would also happen, because, you know, we'll say it's a fantastic place to work. It's a fantastic place to live, and we need to grab and build on these opportunities when we come out of this world, this current sort of crisis now.
Okay, I mean, that's a wonderful answer. And, you know, if that all comes to fruition, we'll all be very, very, very happy. My last question, and it is literally a one-liner from you to reply with, so we can finish, you know, during these awfully difficult times on a really positive note. What's your favourite thing about Birmingham, in a sentence?
It's the people. It's the people, you know, it's the attitude, and I just find it inspiring. You know, it's Birmingham, and you know, it's all about the art of the possible here. And I think if, you know, it's there to be done, so let's go and do it. And right now we're in a period of change, and our city and our region's been changing dramatically in the last half a dozen or more years, and I find that really, really inspiring. We're not the finished product yet. There's so much more to be done, and that just creates a sense of opportunity and, like I say, the art of the possible. So it's a great mix with the right people, the right conditions. We can do something special here. We have been, and we will do again.
I mean, that was the longest sentence, but what a great answer. No, absolutely, what a fantastic answer. You know, for me, it's like a sort of twist of what you say. It's how everyone works together. You know, I've never known a place like it. Listen, we could talk for a long, long time, but there's lots of people pinging in and coming in and just asking me to say to you, thank you, not just for today, but thank you for the wonderful way you represent us all. How you have the energy for it, I don't know, but please continue to be our absolute champion. So it's been a real pleasure interviewing you today.
That's very kind of you, Doug. You know, we've got a brilliant team at the Chamber. I'm very proud to be a part of that team. And thanks, you know, to you and to all of our members for the support and the encouragement.
You know, we are better together, aren't we? So thanks, Paul.
Yeah. Thanks, Doug.